you set up a meeting of all the stakeholders of any project, and you imagine the project has happened and it's gone badly. And you invite people to say why they think it's gone badly. And the idea is that you flush out all their private worries. Curation without authenticity is just curation. And I think actually to get people off the sofa and ordering Just Eat to get out, that's what they're looking for. You can't order atmosphere on an app. I think you're right. Being bolder is more fun.
This is Hospitality Reframed, helping you think differently about hotel food and beverage.
You know what you get from all of this? You get the experience.
You guys live and breathe hospitality.
Hotels are not capable to give a profitable answer on the demand of consumers of today.
Luxury is actually about managing this paradox between accessibility and exclusivity.
You guys are like another level of geeky on this stuff.
So here we are at Foxhills Hotel and Country Club, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Mark Hayton, CEO. Mark, thank you very much for sitting down with us today and chatting.
Scott, it's a pleasure.
So for those people who maybe don't know of Foxhills or may never have been here before, it would be really good to just start by giving a brief synopsis of where you are today and some of the history.
Oh, thank you. Well, Foxhills is a Surrey country club with rooms, the simplest way to describe it. And it's been in my family for 42 years, set up originally by my father as an American-style country club. He was an ad man, worked in Manhattan in the 50s, and was taken to all the great upstate New York country clubs and stored those ideas away until he stumbled across Foxhills.
Amazing. And it definitely has that feel. I think we touched on it a couple of times, didn't we, in terms of how people move around the estate when we worked together, about how they treat it like a country club and how it becomes part of everyday life and habits and how we could play into that. And I guess that's what makes it quite magical in the same way because of it.
Yeah, and the country club culture is far stronger over there to this day than it is in the UK. But one of the things we talk about is actually sort of going beyond country club and actually sort of thinking of ourselves as like a village.
Yep.
And that's where I think the hospitality and the food and beverage that we're going to talk about is particularly relevant.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've always admired, and since I've been working with you for now 3 years, that I've admired as well, is this kind of willingness to keep investing and improving the experience and really putting the member at the heart of every decision. And I think one of the things that we talked about a lot for here was how do we get the members to engage more? I know it's kind of a silly question, but where does that ethos come from? Because so many people sometimes rest on the laurels, or that investment back in isn't as frequent, and it leaves people wanting more, I guess.
Probably insecurity, really, Scott. I remember going back to advertising, which was also my career. There was a great campaign in the 60s for Avis cars, and they were number 2 to Hertz. But their slogan was, "We try harder."
Yeah.
We're number 2. We've got to work harder. Yeah. And we've got so many famous neighbours, particularly golf clubs around Foxhills, that we could never rest on our laurels. Also, I work with ambitious people. They keep coming up with ideas. Our members travel a lot. A lot of them are international themselves, and they come back with ideas. In fact, the fact we've got 2 pickleball courts is precisely down to one of our members who was traveling back and forth to the US pre-COVID. Yep. And he was saying to us that this sport is blowing up. You've got to get in there. So, so it's listening to people around you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think one of the bits that has come onto the innovation radar was obviously food and beverage. It's really interesting, as we were talking before we came on to film, about the importance of food and beverage in a resort, in an estate, in a village. Do you just want to talk about your view on this as a CEO of Foxhills, and obviously Farley as well, that's in the group? How important is food and beverage?
Yeah, I think it is. It's increasingly so. It becomes part of the experience that people are looking for outside of the home, and obviously within. It's often a challenge, particularly for hoteliers as well as standalone restaurants, and golf clubs as well are looking for how they can just outsource catering completely. So it is tough, and getting tougher, as you know as well as anyone. But we say that without food and beverage, club is just a leisure centre, somewhere where you go and swim, then leave. Where you go, you play golf and leave. What the food and beverage does at Foxhills and at Farley is it binds people to the club. It's that dwell time that they get. Yes, there's revenue attached to that, but it's really that it extends the number of visits and makes members feel as though they really belong somewhere, and it's that safe place that our clubs try and really find that place in their lives.
I guess it's one of those, isn't it, as well, is when you come into somewhere like Foxhills and you come in for a purpose, golf, spa, leisure, whatever that might be. I guess the other side of it, which is the non-tangible side, is the social element of other members that you've seen for years, or meeting with colleagues, or kind of using it as this hub. And I guess that all kind of meets in one place as such, which is
we have one restaurant in the village that is almost by what we call our village square, and you'll see members, they'll turn up on their own, or they'll have been to a class and they'll just sit there watching the world go by, which is a happy place, with a coffee, under an umbrella somewhere sunny, and even that alone is part of the glue that makes people feel they matter.
Yeah, and connects them to it as well. And I guess one of the things that I've experienced from being around the team here as well is that extends to the team that work for Foxhills as well, in terms of how they build relationships with the members, and it all has this like really nice ecosystem that goes between and as well, which is quite nice to see. So
well, I mean, we have a mission that we try and live by. That is, when people leave, they feel better than when they arrived. Yeah. And when we meet our new colleagues at induction, we say that applies to them as well. We want everyone to feel better when they leave. And so it is this community of people, colleagues, members in particular. They are the backbone of our business, and then visitors as well, and hotel guests. But everybody should should get that little lift as they go back down our long drives, to feel as though they feel good.
Yeah, it was amazing actually, because it's the first time I've been back for 12 weeks, obviously, since we opened. And coming back through that drive, there was like a nice little smile as you came up. And then I saw the guys at the front who remembered who I was, and there's just that nice feeling as you come in, which is really priceless. I think if we take ourselves back a couple of years to when we started talking about the project in the Manor House, I think I remember us all sitting and having a conversation, and one of the people around the table started asking what we could do if there was a blank canvas. We'd put forward some concepts, some ideas, and he was like, this is okay, but if we gave you a blank canvas and we took the handcuffs off, what would that look like? And I guess at that point is when I walked away and kind of thought, this isn't just changing the restaurant, this is changing the Manor House and what it stands for. What was the problem we were trying to solve, or you were trying to solve, when you wanted to look at reinventing what the Manor House is all about?
Thank you, Scott. And I remember that meeting. I think, like a lot of hotel restaurants, the Manor House was catering mainly to our hotel guests. We only have 66 rooms, so it's not big. But they were the 95% of the diners in the Manor were our hotel guests. And it has sort of got into a bit of a rut. The team were doing a good job, 2 rosette, standard food, but didn't have a particular sort of identity. And I think actually the restaurant and the house itself had started to fall in comparison to the rest of the estate. Post-COVID, we'd gone on a significant investment cycle in our leisure part of our business. So we built a new family facility, new paddle courts, upgraded the gym, a new yoga cabin, a couple of £1 million spent on the golf courses. So a lot of that had been done, and the house all of a sudden, whilst it was the centerpiece of the estate, and really important to the members as a kind of a touchstone, they would see it as they pulled in the drive, this 19th century building, but they never seemed to come inside it. So we really thought that we'd got the leisure facilities where we thought the members wanted them. Now we wanted to really enhance the house and to give them somewhere special that felt like home.
And I guess after 40 years of being in the family or being part, I think 50 years as a hotel. Bringing that manor house element into it, there was such an iconic picture. I think, whenever I Google Foxhills, it's the manor house that comes up so much as that icon down the way. It was really about trying to take something that was functional and create a destination, not just for the hotel guests, but for the members and for the external guests coming in as well and looking at it. And I think the first one was, what could we do if we had a blank canvas? And then the next kind of big statement that came from that initial strategy piece was when Tej said, we want you to make us uncomfortable. Without speaking for him, that ethos of make us uncomfortable and just push further beyond maybe what the obvious of recreating what was already here. What was the driver behind that from a hotel perspective?
Yeah. I think when Tej said make us uncomfortable, I think what he meant was make Mark uncomfortable. I think he sees me as quite cautious.
Yeah.
So he probably said, I want to push Mark and see what he's prepared to do.
Okay.
But
Yeah, and we could have gone in a number of directions. We put forward a number of directions. It was really interesting, actually, of how we looked at different ways we could take it. And although the finished product wasn't one of those three, it was an evolution of one of them, if you remember, which was the Persian, and how and it was all built around specific reasons of putting forward that as a concept, and then how it evolved out. Why was it important that it was more than just a refurbished country house, and there was a willingness to kind of go, let's push the cuisine maybe past the British or whatever it might be?
That's a good question. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're a village. We have 3 restaurants, and one of them occupies that space I referred to as the village square. It's the first place you come to as a member. So it's a natural sort of hub, and it's a kind of all-day brasserie. So it really satisfies that sort of large portion of what kind of people will want at a club. So therefore the manor house, it needs to be different to that. Logically, or maybe in the past, you would have gone fine dining. If you had ambition, you might have aspired to a star. We don't really have that skill set, so that probably wasn't right for us. And also what we've noticed is within some of our aspirational competitors, they were eschewing that direction and going more towards a different cuisine, so particularly Asian, whether it's Japanese or Chinese, things like that. And Tej and I, have always, talked about Indian culture, Indian cuisine. So we thought that was worth exploring, and then that would naturally be different to our other sort of main members restaurant, which is called 19, which obviously alludes to golf, but welcomes all our members. And then we have a kind of an Aussie cafe, which you kindly helped us with, called Flows, and that offers up, informal, fun family facility. So we were really looking for this kind of high street of food and beverage outlets. And also, even the lounge that you helped us with is going to be our wine bar. Yep. So, and you could argue that 19 is, a proxy for our village pub. So all of a sudden, you're giving members and hotel guests, 4 or 5 reasons to come here and stay. So that's why it was more important for us, and maybe we were afforded that luxury of being bolder because we already had 2 other restaurants catering to different parts of the day and different appetites. Yeah,
it's really interesting actually that you said high street, because I've never necessarily thought of it that way before, but it is that curation piece of how you see some of the big developers, and I see it in London all the time, being in and around there, how they curate areas to have the right retail, the right F&B, and that high street kind of way of explaining things is a really good way to, I think, people listening to kind of think about how they curate the offer within the space that has a clear purpose for each time someone wants to go and visit. And I think that's potentially the key to success of why all of the outlets are doing well, is the guest is really clear on why they need to go to each area at what time of day, for what reason, and why, I guess, which is a really good makeup.
Yeah, and I think most people would say that one of the great examples of that is the Ned.
Yeah.
Up in the city, that grand banking hall is just an extraordinary space. The energy that comes out as soon as you go through those doors, what Gareth and the team have done there is fantastic.
Yeah. And I think some people listening to this might sit here and go, you have this English countryside hotel, or country house manor, that appears very British, and then you have the lounge, and there's all these different elements. There's breakfast, there's conference, lunch, and I know we have these conversations a lot of how does then an Indian restaurant sit in that. Do you want to just maybe explain that a little bit, because it's that whole jigsaw, isn't it, of how each piece fits together?
Yeah, and that is complex, because in some resorts they'll have a separate building that may do a Japanese restaurant, but in their kind of main hotel restaurant it'll be doing the all-day dining and so on, whereas we're doing this all in one space. So that's where the branding and the clear identity and having clear communication with particularly with our hotel guests. So actually the Indian offering at Foxhills is only for dinner. So, and it's just making sure that that's clearly explained, because that's where we think customers are going to want that kind of dining experience. And so far that's proved right. But you're right. Then there's afternoon tea that's being served behind me right now. People having a lovely time in this newly decorated space. And then we'll be doing, and our afternoon tea is a traditional British afternoon tea. Our Sunday roast is a fantastic traditional Sunday roast. Our full English, is absolutely belt and braces. So it is unusual, but the team are managing the switch really well, and members and hotel guests are responding to it.
And I think that was one of the bits where, if I look back on the project and reflect, I think the time spent like really stress testing the manor house and the individual elements of it is the bit that then meant when Miro and Mark produced the little booklet for the team, it was so easily readable for the team to kind of say very clearly, this is what the restaurant is and this is what breakfast is. And I think it's that, to people listening, that whole bit around making sure you're really clear that the team understand it as a first point of call makes a big difference to how the guest ultimately
I think you're right.
experiences it.
Because one of the things you and I talked about is, this has got to be, it's got to appear seamless. Otherwise it'll look like a dog's dinner.
Yeah.
And that was an anxiety, less about the cuisine that we were proposing, more about communicating it clearly, and so it wasn't confusing. But I think it has shown, it's early days, we're 12 weeks in, but it has shown that you can add a different cuisine just within your dinner service and still look after the expectations, particularly of your hotel guests, around it, as opposed to having to have, if we had to go sort of Indian cuisine all the way through our offering, I think that would have been more of a challenge for our hotel business. As it is, we've been able to sort of have the best of both. Yeah.
Let's talk about Lomri, which is, I guess, the signature of the house now. Not forgetting the bar, because there's some great bits about the bar, but it's kind of the signature. And I guess it's strange me asking this because I know the answer, but what was the thinking behind it? And for you, as the CEO and the person who was kind of visioning what it might become, why was it the right fit for Foxhills?
I think, as I've said, we were attracting mainly hotel guests. We had good restaurants catering to other parts of the palette, as it were, elsewhere on the estate. So we wanted to try something different. Yeah. We had, half our brigade was of Indian subcontinent heritage anyway, and so was our restaurant manager. And Tej is from India originally as well. It's always been a passion of mine. We didn't think it had been done in a kind of a 19th century manor house before, so we thought it was quite an interesting mix. And we knew that Indian cuisine is amongst the most popular amongst the British anyway, so that wasn't the risk. It was more about doing it to the standard that would encourage people to leave their normal Indian restaurant that they love to come to Foxhills. But that was the thinking. It was something that we thought we could do really well, that we both had a personal passion for, which I think is really important.
Definitely.
Otherwise, and actually, there's a good argument for doing a Japanese or a Chinese, but we don't have that passion for that cuisine, so it would have come across as maybe formulaic. Whereas this, I think, has a lot more authenticity. And one of the great bits of feedback is about Reynold, our restaurant manager, and the stories he tells. With all our diners coming in to dine, they say the food is fantastic, but they say, Reynold told us all about the origin of this dish, and he's from Goa, so he's talking about it's the only part of India that where pork is served, and and those kinds of things, enriching the dining experience. So we really felt that it was something we could do well. It wasn't just looking for, as you said, that curation, which curation without authenticity is just curation. This, I think, felt like we had the right to do it, and we felt we didn't have too much to lose.
Yeah, I was stood here with Mark actually earlier, the hotel manager, and we saw Reynold bouncing around, and I said to Mark, it's amazing how much difference it makes when someone like really believes in what they're doing, and I guess it draws it to when I was running British restaurants in Dubai, and it was kind of like if you bring some of home with you when you're not at home, and there's some of that element to it where you can see in Reynold now. He has this like bounce in his step, and he's talking about the different elements on the menu that are going well when I was with him earlier, and it's just really nice to get that natural smile.
And the chefs come out at every service.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. If not the head chef, which I'll talk about, his senior sous, deputy sous will come out and just walk the room talking, because again, it's food they're passionate about. They love talking about where the recipes have come from, whether it's from their family or from their region, and I think that again makes it a different experience.
Yeah, I talk a lot about how I think hotels, especially with food and beverage, can be a little bit more bold with the thinking, but at points during the 2 years, we had conversations about, was there ever a bit where you thought we're taking too much of a risk, or maybe we're pushing it too far? And I guess what gave you the comfort to carry on with the journey?
Thank you. I remember when, as you say, you pitched a Persian concept, and having spent time in Iran, that was something I was excited about, but I wasn't sure we would be able to pull it off just with. We just didn't have the knowledge, and the it wasn't quite as relevant, and I think then we looked at Anglo-Indian, and that's probably us being a bit cautious, and the risk there is you fall between two stools. So actually, once you've kind of gone towards it, once you've introduced that Asian element, you may as well go all in. And I think what convinced us to do that was meeting Achal. Achal with his talent, having been head chef at Chutney Mary, and by association Viraswamy, and also head chef for Atul Kulcha. I think he was the first Michelin-starred Indian chef in the UK. So Achal's CV spoke volumes, and suddenly we could see it. We could see that the concept that you'd come up with all of a sudden could be realised. We already had a great restaurant manager, and you've described how he's bouncing now, and then teamed with Achal and the brigade that we already had. That's what gave us the confidence to go full gas.
Amazing. It's interesting, isn't it, how sometimes just that one little thing can just give where you're getting the stories. And I remember when it was Anglo-Indian, it was like trying to find the story and the authenticity behind the restaurant was quite challenging. And as we started developing into what Lomri is today, and we started looking at regional food, and then, as you say, all of a sudden then Achal brings his experience. You have Reynold who's talking about their regional differences. All of a sudden you start feeling the concept coming together, and it all starts falling into place. And as you say, when then there's the confidence that it can be delivered well, it makes everything else a bit easier, doesn't it?
And I think that's right, because we didn't think we would have to convince people to come to an Indian restaurant. Everybody, so many people love it. It's why would they come here? So they would come here because they would like to see perhaps what an elevated version of their local restaurant was like, and then with dishes that they didn't know. So better versions of what they do know and dishes that they don't know. Those in a nice setting. So those were the 3 reasons that we wanted to encourage people to try Lomri.
And we're sitting here 3 months on. I guess for everyone sitting here saying it's okay to be bold, but if no one then comes, it doesn't make a difference. So how are things going?
Yeah, great, exceeding expectations. And I suppose that the metric that I was most keen to see was the number of members dining. And before it was, barely any per month. And now I think it's 1 in 4 diners, or 1 in 4 tables is a members table. And that's a great step forward. And we're barely started. And of the members that have come, many are on repeat visits, 2-3 times already. So, and I think they're excited that their club has perhaps tried something different, and many of them didn't come. Well, clearly, didn't come before, and now are regulars. So yeah.
I think it's one of the things that was always kind of that North Star for us was how do we get more members to come in and convert, because they're already in the village and using it. It's kind of easy pickings to an extent, but it wasn't so easy because they weren't coming in before. But then there's also the element of people in the local community coming up the driveway too, which is always difficult in resort hotels, as we've found before. But if you create something that's unique, people will travel. And I think when I was speaking to the team before, there is some non-members, external guests coming in as well, which is nice to see, because traditionally it's been afternoon tea where it's driven most. So
I think the sort of the pie chart of diners so far is hotel guests have gone from over 90% down to 50%.
Okay.
And then the other 50% is made up equally of local diners and members.
Yeah.
So, and I suspect, it'll probably lean further towards those 2 latter categories over time. So, and what we're also pleased about, it hasn't displaced business from the other 2 restaurants.
Yeah.
They're performing very well as well. So,
it's an ideal
so
scenario.
far so good.
And then also you were talking before about corporates as well and that type of thing. So I think maybe that element is worth just chatting about how.
Yeah, that's been a pleasant surprise, a kind of a dividend. We've kept our conference banqueting menus as they were pre-Lomri, but we've said to corporates if they want to order off the Indian menu, they can. And we've seen it from both corporate offsites and fan trips that our sales team have done with clients, that they've really been interested in that side of the offering, because it's new, it's different, it's noteworthy, and it's quality. And as I mentioned to you earlier, my stepdaughter's getting married in August, and she's got a lovely traditional wedding breakfast, but then she's having the Indian menu for late night.
Yeah.
So we're having biryanis and kulfi lollies at about 10 o'clock at night.
That's amazing. And it just shows how versatile it can be and how it can help other parts of the business grow as well, can't it? So it's really shows the importance of getting that concept right, and especially in such a diverse business, looking at how it can extend out into different parts that can help come back and promote the main restaurant again. People come and have wedding buffet at night time and like the food. There's all those guests who might not have been to Foxhills before suddenly see the restaurant and want to come as well. So I think it's
and we're seeing a lot of golf breaks who are now, they would have typically gone to 19, but they're upgrading to Lomri because there's a high gender bias towards men in these golf breaks, and having a great Indian meal is something that's seems to be very attractive to them. So, and also, elements of the Indian cuisine are being used for our sort of spa menus and things like that because of the Ayurvedic nature of a lot of Indian spices. So it's giving even more than we originally thought.
And now people are open. It's open, and people are experiencing it. What's the bit that you enjoy the most about the new Manor House?
You're just seeing it buzzing, seeing people having a great time. I think, it was always, as I said, it was always enjoyed from afar.
Yeah.
Scott. And now, people are using it, and that's the main thing. You don't want it to just be, a 180-year-old pile of bricks. You want it to be vibrant, like the rest of the club is.
Yeah. And if there's some bits that you look back during the project and think they were some of the elements that were most important to the success as it sits today of the project, which of those bits would you think, or would you highlight as the ones that stood out?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned meeting our head chef. That's clearly one. I think the decision to appoint Susie Atkinson as designer, the great job she and her team have done on the interiors and some of the architectural detailing as well, has been fantastic. And let's not underestimate the role of a good consultant as well. Having somebody to sense check, to push. Otherwise, you can all just get into your. It's difficult sometimes to think freely amongst a team that work together a lot. Sometimes you do need somebody from the outside to probe and push. And so I think that those are three immediate areas that have made a difference. But, as you know, there are 1,000 different decisions that make up a project like this a success.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that people underestimate when they see the final restaurant is how much and how many decisions have been before it, from who to appoint in the first place, what the concept should be, how that then evolves, how it's talked about, the design, the little details that go in, and how them all come together in the certain kind of timeline to get to the end one. It's quite challenging, isn't it? And then you have so many different stakeholders that should have involvement from, Tej, obviously, then there's Mark from operations, and the actual team, which I know you made sure were heavily involved in some of the decisions, which would be a great thing to talk about in a minute. But all those little bits add up through a project and really kind of...
Yeah, and I think that's, you know what this industry is like better than most, but that's the bit that eludes most people when they think, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a restaurant? It's not rocket science, it's just complicated. So many little operational pieces that have to knit together. It's alchemical, something magical is created.
Yeah, and just let's talk about why it was so important for you that the team was so involved in certain decisions, because I work on other projects where the team don't even see plans, and then opening day they're asking why something was built in a certain way. But I know for every design of the back bar and things like that came out, or decisions that were made, you made sure that the team were involved. And I think there was a bit before as well, which was I can't remember exactly what you call it, so you might be able to explain it, but the bit where the guys kind of flagged up what potentially could go wrong beforehand.
Pre-mortem.
Why is it pre-mortem? That's it.
Pre-mortem.
Why is it so important to you that the team
I think
got so
the
involved?
idea of a pre-mortem, and I don't know where I heard it first, is that you set up a meeting of all the stakeholders of any project, and you imagine the project has happened and it's gone badly. And you invite people to say why they think it's gone badly. And the idea is that you flush out all their private worries. That individually they may not feel confident, depending on the structure of the organization, they may not feel confident to articulate, especially if, say, it seems like it's a passion project of the boss. And then you just don't want anyone to say afterwards, "Oh yeah, I thought that would happen." So you're trying to.
Thanks for telling us.
You're trying to preempt that. So we did a pre-mortem, and we wanted everyone to sign this off. We're going through a new computer system at the moment. All the joys of that, and everybody has to attend the sessions, and they almost have to sign off to say yes. I endorse this system. I'm aware of its shortcomings, but I still endorse it, because a year later there'll be questions asked, and we want to make sure everybody is signed up. And I think that's important. And we end up with a better outcome as well.
Yeah. And looking back on the whole journey, what did the project teach you about Foxhills, or projects that maybe you didn't appreciate before, or maybe didn't think about before, that someone listening to this might take some wisdom from?
Yeah, I think you're right. Being bolder is more fun.
Yeah.
Being bolder is more fun. And I think you're right. Otherwise, in one of your podcasts, you talked about, not trying to please everyone. And clearly, an Indian restaurant in a country house hotel is not aimed at everyone. Yeah. But it is quite liberating. And you can have more fun with it. So, yeah, I think that's probably something I've learned.
Yeah.
I think also, though, because the previous projects we'd done, since COVID particularly, had all been well received. Each project, it's like anything. The more you do something, if you get positive outcomes, you grow in confidence.
Yeah.
And so we probably did it in the right order, Scott. And so that's why we were able to approach this with a bit more confidence.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about the team. One of the things that we're seeing in projects that we're working on is that old school hospitality is becoming so much more important now than, I'm not saying than kind of maybe pre-COVID, but there just seems to have been this full cycle of how we've gone past Instagram and gimmicks, and it's back to people feeling valued and being recognised. And I know that was a big thing that we looked at here in terms of especially member retention and bringing them back again and again. How important is hospitality?
I think it's innate in some people. It's just the way they are. It's for some people it's just they cannot separate hospitality from themselves. Yeah. It's just like hosting. It's like breaking bread with other people. It's biblical. Yeah, I think actually going back to what you're saying about the importance of old school hospitality, I think that probably, you're right. And I think that explains why London in particular is having a love affair at the moment with Italian restaurants. It's Nicole, my stepdaughter, used to say, I don't know why people go out for Italian. She loves going to explore new cuisines. And I can't think of why I'd go out for a bowl of pasta. But actually, some of these new wave of Italian restaurants in London are just, it's old school hospitality. There's a buzz. You open up the doors and you feel you're in the right place, because that's what Italian hospitality is like. Food sometimes is secondary. And I think actually to get people off the sofa and ordering Just Eat to get out, that's what they're looking for. And you can't order atmosphere on an app.
Yeah, that's a really, really great way to put it. And finally, when people walk into the Manor House today, what do you hope they understand from the journey that got them there to sit in this restaurant in this amazing space? It's funny, I looked back at the picture of the old Fox dining room to this, and it's amazing how much it's transitioned and feels different, even just in picture. What do you hope people understand or take from it?
I don't really care what they take from it. I want them to enjoy it.
Yeah. Perfect.
I think that's my job.
Yeah. So just quickly before we finish, myself and the team, put together something that hopefully can find a place on your wall, which is a bit of a sketch, and we got an artist to just draw up some of these bits that brings the last 3 years of working together. We even found a little place of floors in there into one A3 picture. To say thank you for putting your trust in us. And I hope every time you look at this, you think of all the little moments that went into making the project so special for both of us. So
thank you, Scott. That is wonderful. I see you've even got my mother's sports car in there,
and a little glass of wine as well. We tried to think of all the little things that you'd look at and see. So
fabulous. That's so kind. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, fantastic.
Really, couldn't have done it without you.
Brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on and tell people about the journey. And like I said, for the last 3 years, it felt really strange coming up for the first time in 12 weeks and not being here so often. So thank you again, and thank you for sharing everything with the people listening.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Hospitality Reframed is brought to you by Auden Hospitality,
helping hoteliers rethink and reframe their hotel food and beverage. If you've enjoyed how we think on this episode, learn more about us at audenhospitality.com.